Hello, I am Andrés. I'm here to talk about how to unsubscribe from components, a very popular topic. This is a limited talk. I will not make it long. And this is the link to these slides where you will also find more information. And you can take a picture now, but I will post it later in the meetup group. So my name is Andres, and I'm a senior Angular developer. I work at a company called Macler. I was born in Madrid, Spain, and I love films from the 70s and 80s. And I always smell the wine first, never, you know. Anyway, this is my Twitter. So if after this talk you want to contact me by any reason, whatever, for example, in Macler we are looking for a new Angular developer, but currently we are closing the process of selection. A couple of you have already applied. If you have a lot of interest, just talk to me. Maybe I can influence that and add one more person. I am also a collaborator of Topmoto. I'm blogging for him in Ultimate Courses. And I recently published my first article on how to build progressive web application, which is out of the scope of this talk, of course. And these are the resources of the talk of today. We are going to talk about how to unsubscribe with Angular, but of course, this is a mistake, of course. No, it's not a mistake. It's before Angular 9. Before Angular 9 and with Angular 9, because there is a difference. So let's get right into it. Let's look at the code, because this is not much of a presentation. Do you see the code well, by the way?
No.
Okay, this is Angular 9. This is not it. This is Angular 8. I need to do it in 2 different repositories, of course, and I had to uninstall and install the Angular CLI to do that anyway.
Can you size up a little bit?
Of course. What about this?
So the people in the back has to. It's okay.
I will keep it this size and I will scroll down later. So this is something that we are all familiar with. Normally, when we want to unsubscribe from a component, we create a destroy subject, a property called destroy, destroying, whatever you want to call it. I call it destroyed because then we use takeUntil, and it looks like more semantical, like take it until this component is destroyed. So this operator is wonderful. In the past, it was not possible to do that. There were some problems with share replay, and now it works always. You only have to take care of setting the takeUntil operator the last element of your pipe. Remember that? If not, you can actually lint that. So it will produce a linting error if you do it wrong. But here's the thing. We have a lot of, well, not a lot of, but if you have many components, you have some boilerplate, right? Because whenever you want to do this, you always have to write 3 things. The destroy. Of course, you have to do this. This you will never get rid of. This is not boilerplate, okay? But you have to write the ng on destroy method. And finally, you have to call next. Maybe some of you are wondering, why am I not calling complete? Because it's not necessary. Because complete just, sets the array of servers to 0 elements, and we never have any in the array because we never subscribe to the subject. It's just a subject, and it's just notifying the takeUntil that whatever is inside has to be unsubscribed when the component is destroyed. So how do we solve this problem? How do we do, not to have to write all the time the same code? Well, the first idea I came up with, and this works perfectly, is to create an abstract class. So we extend our component from this abstract class, and in this you already have the destroy, which is the whole boilerplate, isn't it? But the problem is abstract classes are not scalable, because a component can extend only one abstract class at a time. So imagine that you want to extend your component from this abstract class, but at the same time you want to also implement another pattern. For example, you inject a router or whatever you want. You cannot do that. You cannot do the 2 things at the same time. The most you can do is create another class that is extended from this one, and then extend your component from the latter. So how do we solve this actually? With this. This is a mixin class. And this is exactly the same. It's just extending the constructor, and it is giving us a class that implements on destroy, and everything is done for us, and we don't have any problems. But we will see that there are some. And well, as for implementations, the abstract class, of course, is implemented like this: extend subscribe container. And the other one, the mixin, is slightly different. Okay, it's just the same, it extends, but it extends a function. Okay. There is a problem with the mixin. I will show it later, but before that, I will just present to you the third option, the third strategy, and that's creating a decorator. And I mean a method decorator. A method decorator that is going to be written on the ngOnDestroy method. So this takes 3 parameters. It's a factory function that takes 3 parameters: the target, which is going to be the component, property key, which we will not be using, in this case will be always ngOnDestroy, and the descriptor, which is the method itself. And what we do is create in that class a new property called destroyed, and we do it like we would do with JavaScript. And by doing it writable false, if some person tries to write a property called destroy in the component, he or she will be prompt with an error because it's writable false. And after that, we take the descriptor. So this is actually the ngOnDestroy, and we call it next. And with this, we are calling the original descriptor, so whatever is inside the ngOnDestroy of the component, and we do whatever is written there. Okay, everything should be nice and simple. And in this case, it's implemented like this. The only thing is that instead of calling this destroy, you have to say this as any destroy. It is not as elegant as the other one, but it just works. Okay, let's see how this looks in an application. Let's do npm start. By the way, this repository is one of the resources that you will find. Let's see how long it takes. Any questions till now? Okay. Okay, I created this small application. This is has a service that is checking if the console is open or not. We need to have it open to debug what I am doing. So I click OK, and I'll open it. And as you can see, there is an interval observable. Why an interval? Because an interval doesn't unsubscribe. It's not like, like one and things like that. So, and here we have freezer, and by clicking on push to destroy, it will destroy the component. And because we are using the boilerplate, the normal boilerplate, it will just unsubscribe just fine. Let's take for a moment a look at the code, okay? This is what we saw in the beginning, right? So this is logging that the subscription is closed. Fine. Now go to the abstract class. I'm going to clean the console. And it starts counting. And now we are using the same approach with the abstract class, which always works, but it's not scalable. So it perfectly unsubscribes. It is not logging the unsubscription because I am not using ngOnDestroy in the component, but if I wanted, I could, like this. But I have to call super. Okay. But that's all about it. Okay. Now the mixin. It's more or less the same. And it unsubscribes because the counter stops. And last but not least, the decorator. And this is also unsubscribing. But as you can see, I get the trace because, yeah, with the decorator, you always have to write ngOnDestroy. So that's why. But it looks like everything works, okay? But actually, there is a person here who the other day found out that this does not work on AOT compilation. So npm run serve AOT. So again, this, open the console, and we are with the boilerplate. Okay, this is fine. the abstract. This always works. Let's see about the mixin. Okay, I let it count a little, and then I try to destroy it, and it's not destroyed. So the mixin, which was my normal solution in previous project, which was actually working fine in Angular 7 on AOT compilation, doesn't work with Angular 8 and AOT compilation. And then the decorator does work, okay? But it doesn't work in Angular 9. So at this moment is when I started, doing meditation. This is the other repository. I had to find another solution. No mixin, no decorator. I need to find another solution. Now, Angular 9 is implementing Ivy by default. It's enabled by default. So, and this allows to do something, it's called higher order components. You do it with a decorator too. This is also a decorator, but it's not a method decorator like the other one. This is a class decorator. So this is going to come on top of our component class, like this. And let me just show you for a second in one of the articles that I've mentioned. I think it's the second one, yeah. If you debug the class, this is Angular 8, and it's normal compilation. But with Angular 9, in the constructor, you get new properties. And you see, I don't know if you see it actually. There's one called fuck, and there's another one called CMP. And they have this strange character. This is a Greek character, theta, which means that they belong to the Ivy's private API, which means that it's not production ready. It's something that may be renamed in the future. As a matter of fact, it was named differently before, and I had to actually talk to one of the Angular core members and ask why did they rename it, because now it's called like this, but this means do not use it. This means do not use, but I use it anyway. So what do I do? Everything is, of course, explained in the articles and the resources. You can clone the repositories, you can read the articles, and everything is perfectly explained there in detail. I don't want to extend much, but I am retrieving both the component definition and the component factory. Okay, those are those two elements that we just saw. And then I will also need the component on destroy, because I need to store the original one. And here's the trick. And I don't know what the Angular people will think about this, but I am creating a class that extends the target component. And this is kind of forbidden. It should be the other way around. Normally components extend, other classes, other interfaces, but here it's completely the opposite. I just need a class that is exactly that component we are addressing and having this extra property here. So then I create a new component factory with this function. I will not explain it, but actually, it's very easy. It's a factory, that just returns a new component instance. In this case, it's a component instance that contains a destroy property. And then I assign it to the factory. And then is when I can go to the component destroy and do what we should do. Destroy next. And then if there is the original component on destroy, because we can write it or not, since it's part of the boilerplate, we are trying to remove it. So if it's there, you can apply the functionality that is written there too, apart from destroy next, okay? But you don't have to. So this is extra actions, and by using this, you are actually removing the whole boilerplate. This is a wonderful solution. It's actually it, but it's not yet approved by the Angular team. Anyway, I do npm start, and this time I am serving AOT by default to finish this talk. I close the other application. It compiles faster, because it's using Ivy. Okay, so now we are on Angular 9. I close this and I open the console. And this is using the boilerplate. It's the same thing as before. Okay, I click the console, try with the abstract, just in case, because you never know. Anyway, this works, the mixin, and this is actually remarkable. The mixin that didn't work in Angular 8, it works in Angular 9. So here's the thing. The decorator does not work. Okay? And finally, the higher order component, the solution, the meta-programming with Ivy. It does work. So here's the conclusion. We have two options with Angular 9. Either we use the mixin or we use the higher order component. Well, do whatever you want. The higher order component is highly unstandard, and officially I shouldn't recommend it in production because it's not tested. The other one is going to work, but just try it. The good thing about this is that it's everything in the same file. So if it fails, you can just modify the file and find always a solution. There is always a solution. So go ahead and experiment. Yeah. And moment. Conclusion and the end.
Should be called before the component, so the order does matter.
Oh yes, I know what you mean. If this should be called before or after, doesn't matter.
No, not this one. Okay. It's about decorator.
This is the decorator.
No, when it's called.
You mean in the component?
In the component level.
It's here.
Okay. Okay.
That's it.
So, but we have to always set ngo destroy.
Exactly. Right? Apart from the fact that it doesn't work on Angular 9, you always have to write this, even if it's empty. So you are not removing this part of the boilerplate because we have to remove the destroy, this ngo destroy, and the next, the three things. And here you are only removing the destroy property and the next, but not the ngo destroy method itself. So I don't recommend this method. I recommend either the mixin or the more experimental approach.
But this on destroy is decorator, but we have to. I'm just trying to.
Yeah, if you are not familiar with decorators, take a look at the articles. But I also have a reference to the official TypeScript documentation.
I mean, destroyed, you have to create it manually anyway. In this component.
You mean if you have to write this? Of course, yes.
Yes. I mean in this. Okay.
Yes, and it's imported. It's a function. So it's a function, but it's decorated. So decorator is just modify the behavior of a class or of members of the class. In this case, it's just modifying the behavior of our ngo destroy.
I'm trying to understand where the destroyed comes from. This as any.
As any.
Yeah.
Line 16.
Not line 16. This as any destroyed comes from.
Oh yeah. Take a look. What would happen if I would remove this? Because TypeScript is not that clever. The editor knows only the properties that are written in this file. So it doesn't know that we have actually declared destroyed through the decorator. It's really.
You access it through the square brackets and.
You mean like
I think.
Okay. You mean like this?
Yeah, and
let me see. Maybe. Who knows? Well, I've never tried, to be honest. Thank you. I don't know what is actually better.
I hope you didn't know that.
But we can try actually.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
The decorator creates, so it's not only extend the function, but it also creates
a property in the class. Yeah.
The class level.
Exactly. The good thing. The good thing about these method decorators is that they take 3 parameters, and one of them is actually the component class in this case.
Okay.
And we can modify. So we are allowed not only to modify the method, but also to modify the class where the method is contained. Yeah, it's really cool, right?
Really not what to recommend. Not obvious at all. A lot of side effects.
Yeah, I mean, I was waiting for these features to come. Since a long time ago. Yeah. Any more questions?
Can you try some other packages?
Other packages. You mean if I have ever installed a third-party library to do this, like a scavenger or something like that? Yeah, but if you have to really maintain this, because you see how fast these things are changing. You know, one solution works in Angular 8 and then in Angular 8 doesn't. You need to maintain it yourself. You cannot trust anybody else, and it's just a matter of one file. So I wouldn't recommend installing one library for this.
You show the higher order class again.
Of course.
I think it's the most interesting one.
Yeah, it's super interesting actually.
Maybe I'm not deep into it yet. But
sorry. And this is it.
Exactly, because I have the feeling that we instantiate every component twice with that, but maybe it's not the case.
No, we don't. I made sure of it.
So you check that as well?
No, we should be. I'm sure because you influence in the factory, and the factory is the one that produces the component. So you are telling the factory to produce only this component.
And then this happens before Angular picks it up and tries to render it?
Yeah, so absolutely.
It doesn't take the original class and renders it and then...
I was wondering that myself this morning, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
No, it is. This works, and it was. This code was checked by someone who is far more capable than me, actually.
So did you submit that as a pull request so that they could edit?
As a matter of fact, this morning I was also thinking that why in the hell should I do these things? This is something that is so common that the framework should implement it itself. So it's not, it's not stupid to do a pull request, but it's using the Ivy's private API, so they will reject it. Anyway.
Who's not using the private API?
No, it's not possible. It's only with the private API. Because the thing is, if you read the article, just one last thing. Angular 9 is doing 2 compilations, okay? There are 2 compilers and not 1 in Angular 9. Take a look at it. It's in the article that I wrote. Just that.
One last question?
Can you explain how the mixing solution scales? Because I didn't follow.
How the mixing scales?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me just, because I write the article so I don't have to write myself again.
All right.
But the mixing, how a mixing will scale. So take a look at this, for example. This is something you cannot do with an abstract class, okay? So you are extending this component, extended component I call it, from subscriber content mixin, which is the mixin that we just saw, and an hypothetical mixin that is called with router, and then from another one that is called with config service, and you can do it again and again and again. So it's using inheritance, but in a very how would I call it, encapsulated way. And with an abstract class, you can only extend from exactly one abstract class, so you cannot really do this. You cannot compose. So this is the advantage of using a mixin. More.
Just a comment, because I actually was in the last Angular Connect and everyone was asking for custom decorators, and that's why your solution with decorators doesn't work, because they are not supporting it with Ivy. But maybe you're lucky and in Angular 10 you have it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, this is something really experimental.
I mean, it was a lot of people pushing for that, asking in the questions.
Yeah, but
the custom decorator solutions.
We are really longing for this solution. Now that Ivy is going to be stable, I think this kind of feature will be coming up in the future. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So if you have any other questions, you also can I have this? Sure.